Kickers win you weeks. Kickers win you a fantasy football championship. So if you like kicker rankings, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, as we are one of the only channels on YouTube making kicker rankings each and every week. So starting off with week 10 kickers, we started off in the S tier. And the first guy is going to be Dicker the kicker, as they are going up against Pittsburgh. The overall under on this game is 42.5 points with a -9.5 spread. This is going to be a perfect condition shootout for both Cameron Dicker the kicker and Chris Boswell, who's my number 2 kicker in this game. Definitely want to be leaning into both of them. These offenses are going to be able to move the ball on the defenses, but I do believe that these defenses are going to be able to shut them down in the red zone. So I have Dicker the kicker and Chris Boswell as my number 1 and number 2 kicker heading into week 10 fantasy football. And my last kicker in the S tier, it's going to be Chase McLaughlin for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, going up against New England. Like we said, over under in this game is 45.5 points. This is going to be a high scoring game, as we're looking at the Drake May and this New England Patriots offense absolutely cooking, and Baker Mayfield has this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense cooking. We got Emeka Buka another week healthy. We should potentially see Bucky Irving in this week 10 game, which could also help improve this overall offense. Now, the part about this is the New England Patriots front seven is super strong. If you watch the defensive rankings video that came out a little bit earlier today. And so the thing that you need to consider when we're looking at this matchup too is Christian Gonzalez going to play matching up with Emeka Buka? Because if he's not, then I do think there's going to be even a little bit more opportunity for Tampa Bay to move the ball. But nevertheless, Chase McLaughlin should be here in the S tier. Dicker the kicker, Chris Boswell, and Chase McLaughlin as my top 3 kickers heading into week 10 fantasy football. And now we move on to my A tier. And when we're talking through the A tier, we got Ka'imi Fairbairn, Jake Bates, and Eddie Pinheiro. We started off with Ka'imi, who, even though he missed a 50-yard kick on Sunday, still put up a very solid fantasy football week with the amount of field goals that he has. We don't know if CJ Stroud is going to play in week 10. Whether he plays or not with Davis Mills, I think this offense is good enough to get into Ka'imi Fairbairn field goal range. And they're going up against Jacksonville. And we saw a ton of field goals in that first half between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Raiders. And so I think that same kind of game script could happen and play out for Ka'imi Fairbairn as they're going up against Jacksonville. Like we said, right now the over-under on this game is 44.5 total points with a -3 overall spread versus Jacksonville. So I want to be leaning into Ka'imi in this game. Now, my kicker number 5, it's going to be Jake Bates for the Detroit Lions. As they are going up against Washington, this game was going to be a little bit more high scoring. I think maybe a little bit more touchdowns than we were hoping for. But then Jaden Daniels dislocates that elbow, and I just believe right now the over-under is 48.5 points. As we're recording this on Monday, it's coming out on Tuesday. That over-under might go down just a little bit as we get word that Jaden Daniels isn't going to play, with a -7.5 total spread. So give me Jake Bates versus the Washington Commanders, like this matchup for Jake Bates. And then my number 6 overall kicker, it's going to be Eddie Pinheiro. This dude's been absolutely on fire, giving you double-digit fantasy points each and every week. It's like Spencer Schrader put himself into Eddie Pinheiro's body. And I understand this matchup versus the Rams, I just think it's going to be a little bit more touchdown heavy, with the over-under being 46.5 points, implied team total at 24.5 points with a -3 overall spread. I like Eddie. He's a top 6 kicker for me, but I don't think I could put him above Ka'imi and Jake Bates, just based on kind of the volume that I expect those kickers to get. So S and A tier kickers, hopefully you have one of them, or you can pick one of them off of waivers. But now we move on into the B tier. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Like I said earlier, we are on the way to 3,000 subscribers. We are one of the only channels that does kicker ranking. So if you have a kicker question or you have a start sit question, make sure you ask us down below. But B tier, we started off with Michael Bagley for the Indianapolis Colts, going up against Atlanta. It's a -3 overall spread, implied team total of 24 points with an over-under of 45.5. Like this matchup for Michael Bagley, kind of taking the reins from Spencer Schrader. He's not as electric from 50+, but they do get in enough field goal ranges that it's either a touchdown where he's getting 1 point or he's getting a field goal. So he is pretty dynamite, but I just think he's probably going to have a little bit more field goal opportunities, as the Atlanta defense is just a little bit worse than the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, in my humble opinion. Now, next guy in this list in the B tier is going to be Tyler Loop for the Baltimore Ravens. Let's be clear. Tyler let you down ladies and gentlemen, if you played him on that Thursday night game versus the Dolphins. But going up against Minnesota with a 1 plus 1.5 overall spread with an over-under of 43.5 points, got to feel really good about Tyler Loop going up against Minnesota. And my last guy in this tier, it's going to be Brandon McManus. And I understand he missed a kick. I understand this Green Bay Packers offense is struggling. Tucker Kraft is out. But matchup versus Philly, I just think they're not going to be able to find the end zone. This offense is going to stall out a lot, and especially if they can get over the 50, I think Brandon McManus might be their only shot, and there should be enough opportunities for him to at least provide some sort of fantasy football value. Now, I don't have him as my S-tier kicker and A-tier kicker because his accuracy has been absolutely all over the place, but I do want to say that he is here in the B tier. Now, moving on to the C tier, it's kind of a giant clumped tier. So if you don't have one of those guys, please go get one of those guys. Hopefully it's an S or A tier kicker. But Will Lutz, my number 10 overall kicker, going up for Denver, going up against the Vegas Raiders. I think this is going to be a plenty scoring. Now, the question that has to come is, can Vegas push the Broncos defense? Otherwise, it could be kind of get out of hand pretty quick, and I could see the Denver Broncos being able to run out the clock in the second half. But the Denver Broncos offense as a whole hasn't been just performing absolutely amazing. The over-under on this game is 39.5 points, so it's going to be super low scoring. I do think Will Lutz, kind of the same way that he was able to get that game-winning kick in Week 9, has potential in Week 10. Now, Jason Myers for Seattle versus Arizona. We saw Seattle absolutely thump the Arizona Cardinals back in Week 4. I think that same thing could happen in this game with a 46.5 over-under. I like this matchup for Jason Myers. Like I said, though, I just think they are scoring way too many touchdowns, and there's not going to be enough field goal opportunities for Jason Myers to really perform better than kicker number 11 for me this week. And like I said, we kind of get to this range, and this is kind of streaming. I understand a lot of you guys don't like to pick up kickers, and because you're like, hey, there's too much variety. But just so you know where my rankings are, kicker number 12 is going to be Santos for Chicago. I think the thing that we need to kind of consider in this overall matchup is we saw Colston Loveland absolutely pop off for this Bears team. And he put up 10 fantasy points. He's put up 10 fantasy points the last 2 weeks for the Chicago Bears, if you're looking at him on sleeper overall scoring. And so you kind of have him here versus the Giants. I just don't, the over-under is at 42.5. I think it's just a little bit risky, but if he puts up another double-digit kicker week, I think we have to push him up. He could, honestly, this is me being bold saying this, Cairo Santos could be the next Eddie Pinheiro. The only thing is, as we kind of get into more of these colder level games in the Midwest, as we're talking Green Bay, as we're talking about Chicago playing outside, you do just worry a little bit about the length of kicks that Santos is able to kick, but he has been pretty accurate so far. Kicker number 13 is going to be Cam Little, and I understand a lot of you are going to say, Cam Little deserves to be in the B tier after hitting that long 68-yarder, 67-yarder, breaking records in the NFL. This Jacksonville Jaguars offense continues to stifle me, and going up against Houston, I just think they're going to stop this team a whole lot. I understand I like me some Cammy. I guess I should maybe like Cam Little a little bit more, but I just get worried because it just feels like they don't really make it into the red zone a ton, and when they do, they're scoring touchdowns. And so for me, 44.5 over under. Maybe I should push Cam Little a little bit higher, but I think if Cam Little is able to hit another 60-yarder, we could be talking about him making a resurgence, pushing him a little bit higher up in this tier week over week. Kicker number 14 is going to be Andy Borregales for the New England Patriots. Another matchup versus Tampa Bay. This one could be super high scoring. This could mean Andy becomes a top 10 kicker. But like I said, I feel like once you kind of get out of that overall A tier, the B and C tier, it's like such a slight difference in my overall rankings. Like I said, in my overall model, we look at projections. We take all the Vegas lines. We take their hot streaks, everything like that to kind of give these projections. But Cam Little, Andy Borregales at kicker number 14. And then my kicker number 15 is going to be Will Reichert going up against Baltimore. 43.5 total over under, -1.5 total spread. Will Reichert's somebody that I feel like this last week, I was also pretty low on Will Reichert. And, he put up 11 fantasy points. Going up against Baltimore, too, like the Baltimore defense is a little bit less than the Detroit Lions defense. So I just think there might be a few less opportunities for Will Reichert to play. But he did make all 5 of his kicks last week, and there should be maybe a way that we're looking at Will Reichert being somebody that you should be considering week over week in your overall fantasy football lineup as your kicker. But if you like kicker rankings, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button as we're on the way to 3,000 subscribers. Absolutely appreciate you for tuning into this kicker rankings video. We'll be back again with another kicker rankings video. So make sure you hit that like button too, because we are one of the only channels putting out kicker rankings. We want to help you win each and every fantasy football lineup that you have, win each and every week, and ultimately help you win a fantasy football championship. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.